It's Adam here for PC Monitors, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the OSD on-screen display menu system of the BenQ PD3200U. The OSD is controlled by two different methods. There are touch-sensitive buttons, which illuminate if you touch or get your finger near any of the control areas here. There's also a power button, a power LED, which glows white when the monitor is switched on, and glows amber when it's on standby or enters a low power state. That's actually a pressable button, it's not touch sensitive, that one. There's also a little OSD control, a little remote, which allows you to control the OSD in an alternative way. It's connected to the monitor by mini USB. I've got it in the cable tied at the moment, which is why I can't really move it very much, but the cable is fairly long. I could put it anywhere on my desk if I want to, but I like to have it resting in this little area here, which is a little seat which it rests in when you're not using it. It has various different buttons, 1, 2 and 3, which you can customize, OK, and up, down, left and right, plus back. So it's just an alternative way of navigating through the OSD system. If you press the first button here, it is a preset, it allows you to change the presets of the monitor. It's actually a custom key which you can customize. I'll come on to that in a little bit. Various different picture modes there. Some of these are explored in the review. The second button along allows you to change the input source used by the monitor. There's then a brightness control, so an easy way to adjust the brightness of the screen. There's then the main menu system itself and an exit button. The menu system is laid out in BenQ's usual modern style. You can see that the control buttons now correspond to various navigation arrows, so there's up, down, right and left, plus exit, now that you're on the main menu system. The first bit of the menu is display. That allows you to control the PIP, picture-in-picture, or P-by-P, picture-by-picture functionality of the monitor. With PIP you have one source inside another source, so if you've got two things connected to your screen, you can have your primary source for most of the screen, and any secondary source. It could be, for example, a Blu-ray player, playing in a small window, and you can change where on the screen that the secondary source is displayed and how big it is, the size, the position. If you want PBP, picture by picture, you can have two things side by side looking identical to one another in terms of the size and the position, well, one being on the left, one being on the right of the screen, obviously. You can simultaneously do that with up to two sources. I know some monitors support up to 4 sources, this one only supports 2. You can select the input used by the monitor. Next there's picture, that has various basic controls such as brightness, contrast. There's also sharpness, which you can set between 1 and 10 in increments of 1. The default value of 5 is optimal, in my opinion, and also in BenQ's opinion. There are various other settings. They're greyed out at the moment, but that's because I'm using the sRGB preset. If I change to the user preset, I'll get sort of maximum control over things like that. So now you can see that there's gamma as an option. You can set that between 1.8 and 2.6 in increments of 0.2, and as per the review, these actually match quite nicely the intended gammas. So having the actual gamma values rather than just arbitrary numbers 1 to 5 is an improvement over quite a few BenQ models where they just do have 1 to 5, which don't mean anything except the gamma changes with each setting. I mean, the predecessor to this model had the 1 to 5 system as well, the BL3201 PT or PH, depending on your region. So that's a nice little improvement there. There's colour temperature that allows you to change to one of the preset colour temperature modes, or if you're on the user preset as I am now, you can select user define and manually configure the red, green and blue colour channels. You can change the hue, the saturation, and again 50 is the most balanced in both of these, but you know these are just controls for fine tuning, like the sharpness according to preferences, or if you have a specific reason to change these. And there's an option to reset everything on this particular menu, the picture bit of the menu, to the factory defaults. There's also AMA, Advanced Motion Acceleration, which is the pixel overdrive feature of the monitor discussed in the review. You can set this to off, high or premium. Next is Picture Advanced. This is another way of changing the picture mode of the monitor. You actually get more options here than if you just do it with a quick menu. For example, low blue light has various different sort of sub-settings you can select as well, if you've got that active. Dual View, and this is a new feature that wasn't shown on the predecessor of this model, and all it does is it compares your current settings, whatever you've got before you activate Dual View, with one of these presets. So on the left half of the screen you'll see your settings, and on the right half of the screen you'll see the particular preset. So I've got low blue lights setting activated on the right side of the screen, and my normal preset, the sRGB, on the left, so you can see there's a sort of difference in colour temperature and general image representation, as you'd expect from low blue light setting. I mean, this can be useful if, for example, you were wanting to test the different presets and really kind of understand how they change the image, the effect they have on the image, especially if you're doing sort of image editing or colour critical work, that kind of thing, or you're just curious. It's quite a nice little feature to have. There's dynamic contrast. That's only something that can be activated in certain presets, such as the standard mode. So I'll just activate the standard mode. Yeah, so you can see now you can set the dynamic contrast, and as explored in the review, you can set that to various different modes between levels, I should say, between 1 and 5. Again, it's explored in the review. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it here. There's a display mode setting, which is mentioned in the review in terms of the interpolation and scaling. If you've got the native resolution, as I'm running here, it can simulate, well, if you've got any resolution selected, I should say, it can simulate various different screen sizes. The first two are greyed out, aspect and 1:1, because they only apply if you're running certain non-native resolutions. So if I had the monitor in full HD, for example, I'll just do that quickly. So now hopefully at least the 1:1 option should be available to me. The aspect won't be available because this is still a 16:9 aspect ratio resolution anyway, so there's no need to control that. Okay, so you can see now there's 1:1 available to me. If I select that, it displays the image only using 1920 by 1080 pixels in the case of full HD, with a large black border around it. And if I selected 2560 by 1440, if I had the monitor running at that resolution, then the black border would be a lot smaller, but there'd still be a fairly sizable black border because it's not using the full 3840 by 2160 pixels. But it prevents any distortion or softening of the image. I'm now going to set it back to the native resolution of the screen. I know some of you will be curious about what the other settings look like, so I will just quickly go through them for you. So it's 19-inch S, which means square, which simulates that size. You can see because it's very different to the 16:9 4K or UHD resolution native to the monitor. Everything looks squashed and odd, but you know, you might have a specific reason for wanting to use these particular sizes. Same with 22-inch 16:10. If you're actually running that, if you're selecting that resolution in the application, then it makes more sense because it wouldn't distort it like that. 23 inch, so that sort of simulates a 23 inch 16:9 screen. And it, I mean, you probably can't see from the video, but it still looks a bit soft and odd. 24 inch, that's just a little bit bigger. 24 inch 16:10, and again, if you had selected 1920 by 1200, it should in theory look less distorted than it does at the moment. So I'm not going to say I'll quickly select the resolution, because as I demonstrated before, I'm not capable of doing that. So I'll select the resolution at a leisurely pace. And as you can see, you have to cycle through each one individually. You can't just go straight to the one you want. So it does take a bit of time to actually get to the setting you want. So 24 inch 16:10, which is what this particular resolution is common to. And now it doesn't look, I mean, it does look softer because it's still sort of a scaling process is used, but it's not distorted. And then there are a couple more options if you scroll down further in the list. 27 inch, so that's 27 inch 16:9. Of course, I'm still running the weird resolution, so it looks a bit odd again anyway. 27 inch 16:10, or 30 inches, which is of course only very slightly smaller than this 32 inch screen. And I'm just going to set it back to the native resolution again. There are a few options which are greyed out for me because I'm running with the full native resolution on a PC that supports the resolution no problem. I'm using DisplayPort. Overscan, that applies to older games consoles, and HDMI RGB PC range, that applies if you're running the monitor using an HDMI cable, and really it's only applicable if you're running it in full HD as well. I've got an article sort of about talking about correcting the HDMI colour signal, which discusses the kind of thing that that can do for you. Audio just allows you to change the volume of the integrated speakers or anything connected to the 3.5mm jack, or you can mute the speakers, or you can select the source used by the audio. Auto detect or PC audio, I'm not sure what the difference between those is. KVM, keyboard virtual mouse switch. This monitor has two USB 3 upstream ports, so you can actually have say one keyboard and one mouse or other peripherals like that connected to the monitor, and two systems connected to the upstream ports, and then you can select which system you actually want the peripherals to be associated with, if that makes sense. So you can kind of have one keyboard and one mouse used to control two different systems at different times by selecting which upstream port you want to use. So that's what KVM is basically. Next up, the system. There are various different settings here. First is OSD settings, and that allows you to change some basic parameters of the OSD, such as the language it's displayed in, how long it's displayed after the last button press before it automatically disappears, and an OSD lock, which is useful if you've got perhaps younger family members who like to fiddle with your monitor or something, so it stops it being so easy to change the settings. Custom key 1, 2 and 3, which I was alluding to before. These are the first three buttons on the monitor. So 1, 2 and 3. You can set these to various different options. There is picture mode for the first one, which is the factory default, or you can have this instead give you various other functions, including quickly activating a different port on the monitor or activating a specific preset. One of the more useful ones I find is to change it to a low blue light setting, because I use that quite a lot in the evening, and switch it off in the daytime, so it can be useful to quickly have a way of activating and deactivating that. So now you can see that there's a low blue light icon for the first custom key, and then you press that, you can quickly activate one of the low blue light settings. DDC/CI, that's part of the plug and play functionality of the monitor. It allows you to access the OSD using software such as BenQ's Display Pilot software. DP Auto Switch, and HDMI auto switch, so it allows the monitor to automatically select various inputs for you rather than you having to manually select it. There's automatic power off, which will automatically turn the monitor onto standby after a given amount of time. There is resolution notice, and that just gives you a quick little notice on the screen to say you're not running the native resolution. If you're not running the native resolution, information, which displays the current resolution of the monitor and the optimum, the native resolution of the monitor, and also the input you're using. You can change the display port revision just for compatibility purposes. If you've got an older graphics card and you have to run on 1.1 because it doesn't support 1.2, for example. You can change the button 1, 2 and 3 on the OSD controller, which I showed you before. And much like the custom keys, you can set exactly the same things up there. And there's an option to reset everything here to the factory defaults. Next is ergonomics. This allows you to activate or change the eye protect feature, and that's an ambient light sensor in the center of the monitor. You can only activate this in certain presets such as standard and user mode. Once it's activated, there's a little sensor here. I don't know if you'll even be able to pick them up on the video. There's actually two faint red LEDs which will tell you that this feature's active here and here. They just stay on constantly, they don't flash like they did on some earlier models, and they're pretty undistracting. And the monitor's brightness is now adjusting itself. You can't manually select or adjust the brightness. I don't like this feature very much, but that's because I prefer manual control of the brightness. Everyone has different preferences when it comes to brightness, and there's no way to set upper limits or anything like that, and I find that it's generally too bright for my liking with this setting active. I mean, it's nice to have it dim effectively in the evening, but some of the better implementations of this kind of thing would actually let you set a brightness limit, a maximum brightness. So that's something that this monitor's lacking. There's also eye protect meter, and all that does is just give you a little on-screen indication when the brightness changes and the brightness level of the screen changes according to the eye protect sensor. There's eco, which allows you to change the eco sensor. This is a proximity sensor that allows the screen to turn off or turn itself onto standby when a user isn't actually present, you aren't sitting down at your desk using the monitor. This can be activated in any preset. It's not specific to various presets. It's independent of the presets. There's also a eco sensor meter, and again that'll just give you a little on-screen prompt when the sensor's active and it's about to turn the screen off. And you can change the sensor range, so how far out it'll scan for your presence. I'm just going to set this to near for now and move away from the monitor but keep the camera there. Again, they've got these little, you can't actually see them on the video probably, the camera doesn't pick them up, from two faint red LEDs, one there and one there, and they are illuminated when this sensor's active as well. So I'm just going to move away from the monitor now. And you can see that there's a little icon on the screen now which indicates that the screen is going to turn off quite shortly. It does take a bit of time. The icon will be on the screen for, I haven't actually timed it, maybe 30 seconds or so before the screen decides to turn off. So it does take a bit of time. That's just in case you briefly move away from the screen and want to go back to it. So it doesn't sort of want false positives, so to speak. It doesn't want to annoy you and turn off when you don't want it to. So there, now the screen is turned off, and you can see, or you could see if the camera is in the correct position, that the power light is blinking, indicating that the screen is on standby. Obviously it's quite an active standby because the sensor is still active, and I'm now going to come back to my chair to use the monitor, and the screen springs back to life. So that's what that does. It's quite a useful little feature, saving a bit of power when you're not near the screen and you can't be bothered to turn it off. And that was actually the last feature of the menu. I mean, the only other thing on the menu to really talk about is that it tells you what image mode you've got at the top left there, because I didn't mention that before. Yeah, that's all there is to it. That was the OSD on-screen display menu system of the BenQ PD3200U. Be sure to check out the full review on pcmonitors.info. There is a link to that in the description of the video, and also a link to information about how you can support the work that we do.